Hello, welcome to the Dive In. I'm your host, Kathleen, and our guest today is Kathleen.
Hi.
And yes, you did hear that right. We are both Kathleen. I swear I am like a moth to the flame when it comes to making friends named Kat or Kathleen. Completely inescapable. And I know way too many of them. I actually just met another one last week. So it is just part of life now. So today we're going to talk about a recently released movie, The Strangers Chapter One. It is the first of three movies that are going to come out in the next year, and all three films were actually filmed at once. Initially, they were going to make it a 4 hour long movie, which is insane. But also, I don't know how this movie was an hour and a half, so they had to have added stuff in to make it long enough for three movies, I would imagine. But yeah, so they decided to cut this up into three chapters. And for those of you who don't know, there are two other The Strangers movies. There's The Strangers in 2008 and The Strangers Pray at Night, which came out in 2018. I'm going to go ahead and put a spoiler alert here. We are going to talk about these movies in depth. So if you don't want anything spoiled, you have been warned. Neither of us have seen The Strangers Pray at Night, which is the sequel to the 2008 film, so I'm told. But even without seeing this film, both me and Kathleen here have been debating about whether this new movie is a sequel or not a sequel. Neither of us think it's a sequel, but both of us, I think that it is a reimagining or a remake. And do you want to tell them what you think?
I originally thought it was a prequel.
Okay. Oh, wait, do
Yeah.
you not still think
I don't
that?
really think that anymore, no.
Interesting, because
I after like
I've
seeing
actually been
it and like having I don't
yeah.
know, I've been thinking about the movie a lot since.
I've actually been swayed a little bit more, not fully on the prequel side, but there's been like a lot of interviews that I've been reading about where they're a little bit more talking about how, oh no, this is within the same universe. It's still within the same like canon timeline. So I was just kind of like, okay, I don't know fully how it's possible, because there are like clear like at least like as far as technology goes, they went modern. But that
Yeah.
could just be a decision that they decided to make. But yeah, let us know what you guys think because I want to know if you guys think it's a prequel, a sequel, or even just a reboot. So let us know. But for now, let's dive in. So the movie opens with a man running in the woods, which is interesting because it's actually daylight. That's kind of rare for any horror movie. And we see him. Does he trip? I can't remember. Does he trip in this part?
Yeah, I think he like didn't he I think he fell and like hit his back on like a rock or something. It was something
Okay.
like that, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah. So
He
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 fell.
hurts himself somehow.
Yeah. And then one of our masked villains, I think it was the Scarecrow is what they call him. The Scarecrow or the man. There's different names for these villains. They don't have an actual name, but one of our masked villains comes up and I think it's just assumed that he dies. Then it immediately cuts over to our two main characters who are Maya, who's played by Madeline Pesh, and Brian, played by Froy Gutierrez. We see that they're driving cross country for a road trip celebrating their 5 year anniversary. And Maya is looking for a job in Portland. And at one point, they actually almost get into a car accident. Were they kissing?
Yeah.
Yeah, which
Like
immediately is already
what?
like stupid thing number one that they did. And after like they swerve and they're fine, but Ryan like desperately needs an inhaler at this point, which okay, yeah, it is a stressful situation, and but it's just kind of like, oh wow, like he's like really sensitive, like really needs this inhaler. They end up, I guess they're hungry and they look up a diner, and they find one in a small town called Venus. And while they're on their way, they're not sure if they're on the right route and they lose signal, which like really doesn't come up again because then
Classic.
they find the diner and they're like, "Oh, here we are." And the locals are like very sketchy. Like from the moment they pull up, they do not have a good vibe going on. And they walk into the diner, everyone stares at them, and they finally give them a menu and let them sit down. And Maya is getting weird looks just because she's a vegetarian and asks for something without meat on it, which apparently is very rare.
Yeah, how dare she?
I know, like just suggest a salad. I don't know. So they place their order, and I think we see like the two like religious kids. I don't know if they're Mormon or Christian or whatever else, but they come in and they give them a couple of flyers. They see like the poster or a poster of a missing man, who is the guy that we saw at the beginning of the film. At one point, it's said while they were in the diner that they're celebrating their anniversary, and they're like, "Oh, how long have you guys been married?" And they're like, "No, we're not married. We've been dating for 5 years." And they just got the dirtiest looks. Like, so it feels like, at least to me, it feels like religious is very important in this town. And they immediately are just not um looked upon fairly. Um, when they leave the diner, their car will not start, of course. Why would it? And we see like someone just tapping on the window, and who is it? But the creepy mechanic asking if he's got car troubles.
Of course.
So immediately, though, Ryan is just like, they messed with the car. Like, no, this is your fault. You guys did something, which is kind of crazy to jump on someone that quickly, but also given the state that everyone's staring at them, he was right to call them out, being like,
He was.
he really was. Like they were staring them down, like they were acting shady. But Maya ends up convincing him that they were just trying to help him out, and that the car accident probably just knocks, or the near car accident probably just knocked something loose. And now the car won't start because that is how cars work. Um,
Right? It's like they literally just swerved a little bit and she's like, something got knocked loose. Like, girl, what? Makes no sense.
it makes no sense at all. But we learned very quickly that they're not the brightest couple.
That's very true.
So, um, the waitress from the diner tells them about an Airbnb that's in town because apparently their motel is just not functioning. It's closed for repairs, maybe. Very convenient, very odd.
Always.
But the waitress offers to drive them to this Airbnb, which happens to be a cabin in the middle of the woods, in the middle of nowhere. Um, so she drops them off, and they're essentially stranded now at this house. And once they're in the house, they notice that the fridge is out. So so they call the owner at 10 o'clock at night to ask them to fix the fridge at some point in the night. What do they need for one night? Like they're staying there for a couple hours. They're literally laying their head down and then leaving. No hotel would have a fridge. So most of them won't. So why is it that important to like refrigerate their beer is my question.
No, for real. That was one of the things where it was like, really? Like, why?
Yeah, and also you're asking him to come. You're like, you can come anytime. We'll be here all night. You're gonna be sleeping. Why do you want this guy to just barge in at a random time?
Exactly.
That did not make any sense to me whatsoever.
They
Well,
needed their like random what is it? They needed the random bystander who had nothing to do with anything to get shot.
yeah,
So
honestly,
they had to
yes.
call the owner.
They had to have that trope. They're like, well, if they're in a functioning relationship, how else can we have a random stranger come over? Um, like you could have had a police van come to check things out or something. I don't know. The waitress bringing them food, something along those lines. But no, we had to do random owner of the place come by. Well, after some time in the house, we finally get our first knock on the door. And we have someone asking, is Tamara home? And of course they tell her like, no, you have the wrong house. And she walks off, and they're like, wow, that was weird. Where'd she come from? Which are the right questions to ask, but do they keep that in the back of their mind while they're staying in this house? No. Ryan realizes he doesn't have his inhaler, so he takes the property owner's motorcycle and goes back to town to get out of his car and grab food for him and Maya. Like, just,
Okay,
yes, go ahead.
sorry. This whole thing made me so mad because if your asthma was that bad, he wouldn't have forgotten the inhaler. Like, it shouldn't have been on his girlfriend to remember it for him to begin with.
Yeah.
Like, why aren't you looking to make sure, oh, I have asthma so bad that, like, if I get, like, startled, I'm gonna go into an asthma attack? I don't know. That irritated me. But yeah, the fact that he just used the motorcycle, I was like, what?
Yeah, like I would never, unless like, it's one thing when you like book it online, like the Airbnb, and it tells you what amenities you're allowed to use. They didn't book this online. They just walked into this place. They were like, yeah, the owner's fine if you guys come and stay. It did not make sense to me. And then they're like, yeah, the motorcycle's there, so let me just take it into town. It'll be fine. And then not only that, but he left Maya there. Like, we already had a creepy person come from a middle of nowhere, knocking to ask for someone who wasn't there, and just like creepily walks off. Like, and you're just gonna leave right there.
Right? Like, come on, man.
Yeah. I mean, me, I would have been like, no, I'm coming with you. Like, either we both stay or we both go. I am not being left alone in a cabin in the woods while there's a creepy person somewhere out there. Like, she couldn't have gotten far.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's my 2 cents. So while Maya is home alone, she does a couple things. She FaceTimes her friends, sits by the fire, plays the piano, pretty much tries to do everything that the first movie did. They're like, how can we make this look the same? Which, like, good for them. Like, it was a great movie. If you want to try to emulate it, like, do it scene for scene. I don't blame them. But during this time, we start to like hear things around the house, and we actually see the mass stalker like in the background of a few of those scenes. Her phone goes missing, and then while she's taking a shower, we see our scarecrow masked man just stand like she's facing the shower, and the guy is just right here in her peripheral, just
Like, come
staring
on.
at her, like bent over staring at her, and it's unrealistic. Just completely
Mhm.
unrealistic. Like, is this man a magician? Like,
He moves so quick too,
so quick.
somehow. Like, what?
Yeah, I did not understand that at all because that there's no way you could not have missed that. You would have seen the shadows under your eyelids, something like there's no way you missed that guy just standing there staring at you while you're showering. And of course, they have that moment where she looks over and there's no one there, and you're like, oh, she almost saw him.
There also are like a couple times, like before the shower scene, where like
Yeah.
you can clearly hear someone like walking on the stairs.
Yes.
Yeah, and she's just like, I don't hear anything. It's like, what? What do you mean? It's
I
so loud.
I agree. Honestly, I kept hearing things and I could not tell between me and you. I could not tell if it was the audience or if it was the movie.
That's fair.
But yeah, it was there was a lot of sounds going on. Like
Word.
to the point I would have been like so freaked out. Like it should have been the quietest place in the entire world. There should have been nothing but like maybe like rats in the attic or something.
Yeah.
Um um but it was just like very noisy. And it would have made more sense if she was like playing music while he was walking around. But no, he like there was nothing on, and you could just clearly hear some people walking around. And no, I would have been out of there. I would have ran as far as I could. Well, while she's still home alone, the girl actually comes back, knocks on the door, and starts asking for Tamara again. And
Isn't
she's
isn't that like when she locks the door to the house?
yes, that's when she finally locks the door.
What is wrong with these people?
I know it's not like it's one thing if like she's from a small town, but she's from what I'm assuming is New York City. They kept calling it the city. But you're from a big city. The first thing you would have done is locked every door and every window. You wouldn't have been like, "Oh no, it's fine. We're in this creepy town where we don't know people. Let's just leave everything unlocked."
Crazy.
So she like yells through the door like you need to go away. Like there's no one here by that name. Like looks through the people, and like this girl like covers the people at one point, which I would have been like, no, I'm out. Like we're calling 911 right now. Like this is not okay. So she's like calling Ryan, like trying to get him to come back sooner, but of course he doesn't pick up because he's on the motorcycle. So it then like pans over to what Ryan's doing, and we see that he's like goes to retrieve his inhaler out of the car, and of course the creepy mechanic shows up with a pipe, and he's like, I could, or with a crowbar, I think. And he's like, I could have killed you. I thought you were like a car thief and blah blah blah. And he's like, okay, well, I'm not. This is my car. Just getting my inhaler, dude. Like I should be allowed to get into my own car. So that was I don't know. They were like really trying to play into like the creepy town element, which I feel like was completely unnecessary. Because then we then see him at a food truck, and like the locals are taunting him, and like the people at the food truck are trying to hand him more religious flyers, and he's like, "No, we already got a couple actually. Like I'm good." And like just she just gives him the stink eye because he said no. Like just really playing into that creepy town, which I don't know. Maybe it comes into play in the next two movies,
Who
but it
knows?
it was not apparent in this movie at all. So we go back over to Maya, and the power ends up going out, and she's going around looking for a fuse box, which me, some creepy person hanging around the house, and power going out, to me, I would have been in a closet, locked away somewhere, calling 911. But Maya goes to look for a fuse box, because she's like, oh no, I tripped it somehow. Oh, she was drying her hair. That's what she was doing.
Yeah, that's what yeah.
Yeah. So she thought I'm sure she thought she'd like tripped the fuse box, which I would have never dried my hair if I knew there was a creepy person outside who keeps knocking on the door. Like common sense. Like I would have wanted to hear everything. But when she finally finds the fuse box, her like flashlight, I think she drops her phone, picks it back up, and she sees a girl in a mask, freaks out, and she ends up hiding until Ryan gets back. And this is where I lost all respect for Ryan. He just sits there and just gaslights her and tells her, "Oh no, like, have you been smoking?" Which, like, yes, she had. But he was just like, "Yeah, see, you were just seeing stuff because you were high, and it's actually this painting that's on the wall on the other side of the
Painting.
room."
I was like, what? What do you mean she saw a painting? Like, what? He
Like
really did like gaslight her bad
he
there.
did. And like there's a difference between someone being this close to you and someone being like a painting all the way on the other side of a room. Like she should have stuck up for herself more there.
She should have. Like, no, that was a person in front of me.
Yeah. Which I don't even know how that person came in and out because the windows were boarded. Great Airbnb, by the way. Uh,
Literally.
but I have no clue how that person got in and out if all the windows were boarded. So that's beyond me. It was a little unrealistic there, but they try to like reconcile, and the girl ends up coming back and knocking on the door again. And this is where he opens up the door, walks out on the porch, and starts yelling until she runs off, in a very comical way.
That was really
Uh,
funny.
it was. She just I don't even know how to. It's almost like if you got a fart but you're running. I don't like that's the only way I know how to describe that run.
I think that's a good description.
Well, they both end up sitting down and eating, and they make this huge scene about how messy of an eater Ryan is, and there's just ketchup going everywhere. It's kind of gross. And then we start seeing like a different red liquid dripping down, and they like look at it like, that's weird. That's not ketchup. And sure enough, there is a chicken hanging from the chandelier, and they finally realize, like, oh, hey, there's something weird going on here. There's someone in the house. We should hide.
Yeah, I like how she's like, I told you there was someone in the house. It's like, girl, why didn't you stick up for yourself earlier?
I know. Why'd you just like? Why were you like, okay, yeah, let's just sit down to eat? Why didn't you just be like, let's hop on the motorcycle, go into town? Like, I'm not sleeping tonight. Let's just sleep in our car, which is not being worked on. Like something, but yeah, they sat down for dinner instead. So I think they go to like lock all the doors, and then the scarecrow starts breaking in with the axe.
Yeah.
And so then they barricade themselves into a bedroom with the clown painting. And here comes the guy in the mask again, breaking through the door. And he literally breaks it down to where like he could have crawled through. He could fully see them, and then just chooses to walk off. And they're just like sitting there like, is he gone? Like, did he leave? Is that it? Like, what is he doing? Which I mean, yeah, valid questions. I would ask those questions too. But they didn't then decide like, let's stick our heads through this hole just to make sure there's a man with an axe, but let's put our head through the door just to be sure he's gone. I feel like I'm like really shitting on this movie, but I'm just their
No,
choices
I'm
weren't
right there
great.
with you. The longer that like I've thought about this movie, the more I realize how much I didn't like it. I really thought it
Yeah.
was not well done at all.
Yeah, there's a lot they could have done different. Just stick to the original.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at this point, they actually walk outside and finally go towards the motorcycle, which blows up right in front of them. Just complete explosion. I don't know if someone had a detonator and just waited, or if it was just really good timing for our heroes, because like that would have sucked if they got on that motorcycle and started driving off and then it blew up.
Right.
Um, but instead of just, I don't know, running, running down the street, running into the woods, running away from these crazy people, they decide to go back inside the house and trap themselves in the bathroom. Probably one of the worst places to trap themselves in, because there is no weapons. They looked, they checked. I think they found a toothbrush, maybe. Um,
I don't remember what he finds,
was it
but
a
it's
was it a
something.
razor? It may have been a
It
razor.
may be. I don't remember what it was.
I don't know. But they quickly find out there's a giant vent, like just a massive like 5 by 5 vent just sitting there, and they're like, "Oh, this goes underneath the house. Like we'll just go under here and escape that way." So while they're crawling underneath the house, the strangers that are inside are playing music on the record player, and of course, right as it stops, Maya puts her hand right into a nail, which good for her for being able not to scream, because that would have hurt so bad.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that would not have been fun. But then they decide to take it out, which don't ever do. Go to the hospital first. Let them do it. Don't take it out yourself. But yeah, they wait until, I think, until the girl is playing the piano. One of the strangers starts playing the piano, and then they pull it out and wrap it with part of his shirt or a shoelace or something. And then they decide to run for the shed, which, again, why you just don't run, I don't know. They had so many opportunities to just leave and they didn't. But they run for the shed. Ryan is upstairs looking for any kind of weapon, and Maya's left downstairs holding onto a hoe, I think is what that tool is. While he's upstairs, she starts getting attacked by two of the strangers. He bursts through the window, holds onto the hoe, and like is like choking her essentially. And he comes down just in time to like shoot at him with a shotgun that he had found upstairs. Which unfortunately he did miss. So they just run off. And then next we see Ryan and Maya decide to go back to the house. I know.
All the decisions they made were they just irritated me.
Yeah, it was not smart. They go back to the house and they're sitting on the side of the house and they hear somebody on the front porch, and Ryan shoots without looking and gets this guy straight in the head. He can actually aim this time. Gets this guy in the head, and they're sitting there like, "Oh, this person doesn't have a mask on. Wait, he does not have a mask on." And they realize that it's the owner who came to fix the refrigerator. Um,
Classic.
yeah, classic. Poor guy. So they decide to take the owner's keys and just steal his car essentially. And as they're trying to drive off, the scarecrow mask guy comes up in his truck and just T-bones them into a tree, which they could have driven away so many times. Like every time he reversed,
Oh, so many times.
yeah, so many times, but every time the guy reversed, they could have driven forward or something or gotten out of the car. But then Ryan, he's like, my leg is stuck, and telling Maya to run off without him and blah, blah, blah. So Maya crawls out the window or opens the door, I think, leaves the car and leaves Ryan. And then the masked guy just disappears, leaves his car running, which, hey, if your
They
car's
could have
not running,
taken.
yeah, they could have taken that car, but they didn't. So Ryan starts running after Maya, trying to find her. And during this time, is being chased by one of the strangers with the it's either like the doll face or I think they call it the pinup doll girl. But she's being chased by one of them, and she ends up hiding in a pile of leaves, making as much noise as possible. And then while she's there, well, one, she finds a dead body right next to her,
Yes.
which is the guy from the beginning of the movie. But then she has a flip phone, and I cannot remember how she got this flip phone. Did she find it in the shed?
I think she took it from Joe.
Oh, she took it from Joe. Oh, okay,
I
from the
think
owner.
so.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't know
Which
why he had a flip phone,
I,
but
I was about to ask that. I was like, why does he have a flip phone? But yeah, so she takes it from him and tries to call 911, but the signal sucks, of course. She was able to get through and talk to somebody, but she wasn't, I don't think she was able to get the address out really. She just kept saying, like, we're at the Airbnb, we're at the Airbnb. She's trying to get more signal, and as she's doing so, I think that's when she gets cut. Is that right? When she gets found?
no, I don't think so. I think
How
it's
did
what
she
so
get?
she like walks up the stairs.
I don't remember either. Well, anyways, she gets captured. She gets knocked out, and we see her getting dragged through the woods back to the house. Ryan was still looking for Maya, and he at one point he finds a water bottle, empties it, and uses it because his asthma just now decided to flare up after all that time because he lost his inhaler earlier. Hasn't needed it until this point, and now he needs it. So he uses a water bottle, makes so much noise with it. He ends up coming up on one of the girl villains and like holds her at gunpoint and is literally like, "Tell me where Maya is. Tell me where Maya is." And he's like, "I'm gonna shoot you." Like, you know what they say that the first one's so much harder to kill, but I've already killed somebody. And then right as that happens, I know,
He
worst
took
line.
like 5 business days to like what? He had so many times to just shoot that girl.
I know, which I don't know why he didn't. Like he doesn't even have to shoot her in the face. Like shoot her in the leg, do something. But like he just sat there and was like, "I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it." And sure enough, the other guy comes up from the side and knocks him out. So we see both of them wake up and they are tied to chairs and they're back in the house. During this time, they have like a little touching moment where they tell each other that they love each other. Ryan asks Maya to marry him, and she says yes. And right as they're having like this cute moment, Ryan gets stabbed like right in the gut, and then they just knock him over and he dies. And so then Maya's sitting there, she's like, "Why are you doing this to us?" And their response was, "Because you're here." And then she gets stabbed the same way as Ryan. They knock over her chair. She's presumed dead. And right as that happens, police show up. So I guess her call did get through. And the strangers drive away. Like they literally turn the corner right as the police were coming around, which you think they would see them, but they didn't.
Right?
Yeah. The end of the movie, we see that Maya is has actually survived and we see her in the hospital bed. The end of the film, we see that Maya actually survived and she's in the hospital. And the film kind of ends there. They're like, to be continued. End credits roll, and we end up with a mid-credit scene where Maya wakes up in the hospital and we see her sit up. And right as she's sitting up, we see the masked our scarecrow stranger just sitting there, just laying there. He had been laying next to her. And once again, her peripheral must really suck because she did not see him laying in the hospital bed next to her. But yeah, so that was the end of the movie. Honestly, in my opinion, I feel like it fell very short from the original, like extremely short. They definitely took a lot of scenes from the original, tried to emulate it just in a new way. Like scenes where they were like hooking up and the first person knocks on the door, the shooting of the innocent bystander, running to the shed. But I feel like they were like really trying to push that narrative of like the town being super creepy or super religious and trying to target them in some way. But I don't know. What were your thoughts about this?
So the original The Strangers is like one of my favorite horror movies ever. Um,
So good.
there's so many things that it does well. Like it's just a terrifying movie.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of jump scares. They're just in their house or I think it's like his dad's house. And because they were going there because he thought that she was gonna say yes after he proposed to her. And then she said
Yeah.
no, so it was like all awkward. Um, but there's so many things about that movie and like why it works. Like, yeah, the characters in that movie are a little stupid, but they weren't as dumb as the people. I don't know. It just feels like in the original movie, there's more of a sense of like helplessness and
Yeah.
like we can't get out, we can't get away. Like they take away all of their modes of transportation, and there's multiple times where like one of the strangers will show up behind like Liv Tyler, but there's no music that like whereas like in this movie there were just so many times where it was like I don't know. I felt like this movie wanted to rely on a lot of like horror tropes, which in my opinion the original movie
Doesn't.
doesn't do that. And it bothered me.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like they tried very hard to emulate so many of those like normal tropes that a horror movie would have, but not even like you said, like the original Strangers steered away from those. Like they made it to where they were trapped in this house. Like there was no escape, or like it made sense for them to be in there at the times that they were in there, and to when they did run, it made sense for them to run then. And one of the things that I like about The Strangers, and I feel like makes a horror movie good, is when you don't know the motives of the villain. Like the moment you start explaining or alluding to like some sort of explanation as to like why this is happening to them, like, oh, it could be this person. Like, no, like the original The Strangers, we had no clue who these people were. We don't know why they were there. We knew nothing about the town around them, if there was a town around them. Like we just knew they were alone in a cabin. There's not supposed to be anyone near them, and some creepy girl just shows up, and there's no motive behind it, and that's what makes it scary. Um,
Yeah.
and then,
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
sorry. There's also just like multiple things in the original Strangers that this movie tried to do and failed so horribly. Like in the original movie, when the girl comes up the first time and is like, "Hello, is Tamara there?" It's creepy. Like it's so
Yeah,
fucking creepy. And you see the girl, you see her mask,
yeah,
and in this one, "Hello, is Tamara there?" Like it doesn't hit the same. They never show that girl's mask, which bothered me because you're supposed to see it. And then I'm sorry, but the ending one really pissed me off where she was like, because you were here. And it's
yeah,
like, no, it's because you were home.
yeah,
Like if you were gonna emulate it, at least do that line.
yeah. But I think the reason why they changed it to because you're here is because it's supposed, like, it's not their home. Um,
No, true.
but how would they know? See, that's the
Yeah.
thing. Like, how would you know that's not their home if you're just some random? Yeah. Um,
All those scenes just hit so much harder in the original.
They do. And like even talking about the scene where the girl knocks on the door, in the original, they were very much like trying to like flip on the lights, being like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't see you. And like made it a point to be like, oh, that's weird that this light is out. And then as soon as she walks away, he like goes for the light bulb and turns it. And this one, he's just sitting there like looking at this girl in the dark, being like, no, she's not here. And then when she walks away, he tries the light bulb. I was like, well, why do you care about the light bulb now?
No.
Like they were, like you said, like they failed to recreate the scenes that made it scary. And they were trying to do jump scares when we didn't need jump scares. We just needed like a creepy, we just needed to be on the edge of our seat, like almost like we're going to jump but not jumping. Like we needed that suspense and not to be like, I don't know, things popping out just because.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I feel like they gave the strangers a little too much personality, to be honest. Um,
Yeah, I would agree with that.
yeah, it's like
Because they really don't have that in the original, like
yeah,
at all.
they're very just stoic. They're just there. They're just these like beings that are almost inhuman, because of the way that they move and because of the way that they are just slow. Like they're slow. Let's put it that way. Like I liked that they would stand there for a while and then they would slowly walk away. But with this one, like they would just pop up and they would be there and then they would be gone. Like you said
Mhm.
earlier, like how fast is this guy? He's got to be quick
Yeah.
if he's like coming in and out that quickly. Um,
Yeah, the first movie definitely gives off like hunters like hunting after like prey.
yeah,
And in this movie, it almost felt like I was waiting for the strangers to like reveal that they were like supernatural beings because why are you moving that fast? Like
yeah,
there's the one scene where he like goes to shoot the guy when he's like got his leg pin in the car and he just moves so quick and it's like what? Nobody
yeah,
moves that fast.
yeah, yeah. Um, yeah. And I honestly, I hate the trope with the girl, the final girl waking up in the hospital and the audience knowing it's not over, but her thinking it is. Like, I I don't like that trope. Like, and it makes me wonder what these other two chapters are supposed to have if that's where we ended. Because this was supposed to be one movie, like one full movie, and this was only a third. So I'm curious, like, what do you think um would be in the next two movies? What would you want to be in the next two movies?
I don't even know, honestly. I really didn't like the whole Airbnb thing. It felt too like tailored and too like horror movie setup-y. So it would be nice if in the next one it's like literally just a home invasion.
Yeah. Yeah, that like it felt too complicated to get them in
Yeah,
that Airbnb.
it really did.
Do you
Yeah,
think
because what?
do you think you'll watch the next two movies?
I'm not sure. I really didn't like this one.
Yeah. It it failed to live up to my expectations, unfortunately. And my expectations were kind of low to going in. Like it's hard to compete against the original.
It is.
Um,
Yeah, because even in the original, one of my favorite things about it is that at the end, Kristen wakes up with the kids that like come looking to her, but you never know if she lived. There's never any explanation if she's lived or not. And
yeah.
I appreciated that because it's like we don't need to know.
Yeah.
Like and so I didn't like that they like actually like put Maya in the hospital because like I don't know, are they gonna try to like I also don't feel like they would have come to the hospital to like finish her off. That didn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
Um, because I'm curious, is like the next one gonna be Maya again and like she's like moved on and they like find her again or something obnoxious? I hope not.
Yeah.
That'd be a
That
lot of
make
trauma.
And that also makes it feel like less like because you're here. Like that feels way more targeted than just
That's
being a
true.
random invasion.
That is true.
So, yeah.
Hopefully not.
Yeah. Hopefully not. Hopefully they do like have someone else come in, but I guess we'll find out. Or maybe we won't if we don't go see it.
True.
Okay. Well, for my final question, a friend of mine started a new rating system. Would you buy the DVD?
No,
Would you rent it on streaming or would you would you recommend anyone to rent it on streaming?
no.
Would you recommend someone to watch it for free on streaming?
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe.
We got
If it's
there.
free, then maybe.
Yeah. I mean, it's not the worst horror movie I've ever seen.
That is true.
Yeah.
Definitely seen worse. I
And
also, we never talked about this, but why was it not rated? It didn't
I
seem like there was any reason for that.
I agree. I think they couldn't decide if they wanted to make it R or PG-13 is the only thing I can think of why it's not rated. Because there wasn't a lot of language. There wasn't a ton of blood, but I think it just alludes to like violence and blood. So they probably were on the fence of what they wanted. Um, my only thought. Yeah. No, it's odd. I definitely think it should have been a PG-13 film.
I agree.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Kathleen, for joining me today. And for anyone listening in, this has been The Diamond. Bye. They do. And like even the scene when the girl knocks on the door asking for Tamara, um, Hold on one second.
Okay.
I didn't know you were out there. Sorry, Khaleesi wanted to come in.
No problem.
I didn't know she wasn't in my room. I was like, what is happening?